The diner's bell jingled, a sharp sound that sliced through the haze of Caleb's thoughts. He sat in the corner booth, his fingers tracing the chipped edge of a coffee mug, the world outside the window blurring into streaks of autumn gold. Across from him, Marcus leaned forward, his dark eyes catching the light, and Caleb felt his heart lurch, half from love, half from dread. They'd been meeting here at Rosie's Diner for months, tucked away in the sleepy town of Willow Creek, New York. It was their sanctuary, a place where stolen glances and brushed knuckles felt safe, even if the rest of the world didn't. Caleb, 24, with his messy dark hair and leather jacket, had grown up here, under the weight of a town that whispered about boys like him. Marcus, 22, had moved to Willow Creek a year ago, his warm brown skin and quiet confidence drawing Caleb like a moth to a flame. Their connection had sparked instantly, a shared laugh over a spilled coffee, a late-night talk under the stars, a kiss that felt like a rebellion against the universe. But today was different. Caleb's mother, Eleanor, was waiting for him at home. He'd promised to tell her the truth tonight, to finally say the words he'd rehearsed 1,000 times. I'm gay, and I love Marcus. The thought made his stomach churn. Eleanor was the pillar of their small community, church volunteer, PTA president, the woman who smiled at everyone but ruled her son's life with an iron grip. Caleb had spent years dodging her expectations, her subtle jabs about settling down with a nice girl. Tonight, he'd face her, and Marcus, sitting across from him, was the only thing keeping him from bolting. You don't have to do this alone, Marcus said, his voice low, steady. I can come with you. Caleb shook his head, his jaw tight. No, she'll make it about you. Twist it somehow. I need to do this myself. Marcus reached across the table, his hand brushing Caleb's. You're braver than you think. She can't take this from us. Caleb wanted to believe him, but the weight of Eleanor's smile, the one that could charm a room or cut like a blade, loomed in his mind. He squeezed Marcus's hand, then pulled away as the diner's door swung open. Rosie, the owner, glanced their way, her eyes kind but knowing. She'd seen them together enough to guess what they were to each other, though she never said a word. Caleb envied her silence. Soon, his secret would be laid bare. The walk to his mother's house felt like a march to the gallows. Willow Creek's streets were quiet, the air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves. Caleb's boots crunched against the pavement, each step heavier than the last. The house came into view, a pristine colonial with white shutters and a manicured lawn, the kind of place that screamed perfection. Inside, Eleanor was waiting, her apron still on from baking, her smile ready to disarm. Caleb, you're late, she called as he stepped through the door. Her voice was warm, but her eyes scanned him, searching for something to critique. She was in her early 50s, her blonde hair pulled into a neat bun, her face a mask of maternal care. Dinner's ready. I made your favorite, pot roast. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. Mom, we need to talk. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Of course, sweetheart. Sit down. They sat at the dining table, the pot roast steaming between them. Caleb's hands shook as he gripped his fork, the words he'd practiced sticking in his throat. Eleanor watched him, her head tilted, that smile still in place. Finally, he couldn't stand the silence. Mom, I'm gay, he blurted, his voice cracking. I've been seeing someone. His name is Marcus. I love him. For a moment, the room was still. Then Eleanor stood, walked around the table, and pulled Caleb into a hug. Her arms were warm, her perfume familiar, and for a fleeting second, Caleb felt relief wash over him. She understood. She accepted him. Oh, Caleb, she whispered, her voice soft. Thank you for telling me. But as she pulled back, her smile was different, sharper, colder, like a blade hidden in velvet. We'll figure this out, she said, her tone too calm, too controlled. You're just confused, sweetheart. We'll fix this. Caleb's heart sank. He'd expected anger, maybe tears, but not this calculated kindness that felt like a trap. I'm not confused, he said, his voice firmer now. This is who I am. Eleanor's smile didn't waver. We'll talk more tomorrow. Eat your dinner. You look tired. That night, Caleb lay awake, replaying her words. We'll fix this. He texted Marcus, his fingers trembling. She hugged me, but I don't think she's okay with it. Marcus's reply was instant. I'm here. We'll face this together. The next morning, Eleanor was already at work. Not at her job as a real estate agent, but on Caleb. She'd called Pastor John from their church, arranging a talk for him. She'd left a stack of brochures on the kitchen counter, conversion therapy programs, their glossy covers promising healing and restoration. Caleb's stomach turned as he flipped through them, the words blurring into a haze of shame and fear. He met Marcus at the diner again, his hands shaking as he showed him the brochures. She's not going to let this go, Caleb said, his voice barely above a whisper. She's going to make my life hell. Marcus's jaw tightened, but his hand found Caleb's under the table. She can try, but she's not going to win. You're not alone in this. Caleb wanted to believe him, but Eleanor's smile haunted him. She wasn't the type to yell or scream. No, her weapons were subtler. Whispers to the right people, favors called in, a slow dismantling of everything Caleb held dear. And she'd already begun. By the end of the week, the rumors started. Caleb overheard them at the grocery store, the gas station, the library. Eleanor's boy is going through a phase, they said. Poor thing, she's trying so hard to help him. Friends he'd known since childhood stopped texting back. His boss at the auto shop started giving him fewer shifts, citing scheduling issues. Eleanor's influence was everywhere, her smile a silent promise that she'd reshape his world to fit her vision. But Caleb wasn't ready to break. Not yet. Marcus was his anchor, his reason to keep fighting. And as they sat in the diner, planning their next move, Caleb felt a spark of defiance. Eleanor might have the town in her pocket, but she didn't have him. Not anymore. The air in Willow Creek grew colder as October deepened, mirroring the chills settling into Caleb's life. Each day brought a new subtle blow from Eleanor. She hadn't raised her voice once, hadn't shed a tear. Instead, she wielded her influence like a scalpel, carving away at Caleb's world with precision. The diner remained his refuge, where Marcus's presence grounded him, but even there, the whispers followed. On a rainy Tuesday, Caleb arrived at Rosie's diner to find Marcus already waiting, his hoodie damp from the downpour. Marcus's eyes were tired, but his smile was a lifeline. You okay? He asked, sliding a coffee across the table. Caleb shook his head, his voice low. She canceled my car insurance. Said it was an oversight, but I know better. She's trying to box me in. Marcus's hand tightened around his mug. She's playing dirty. We need a plan. Caleb nodded, but his mind was a tangle of fear and anger. Eleanor had always been the architect of his life, choosing his schools, his friends, even his clothes when he was younger. Coming out to her was supposed to be his declaration of freedom, but instead, it had unleashed a quiet war. She'd started calling his old high school friends, planting seeds of doubt about his choices. She'd even spoken to his landlord, who suddenly needed to inspect Caleb's apartment for maintenance issues. That evening, Caleb confronted her. The house smelled of cinnamon from her baking, a false warmth that clashed with the tension in the air. Eleanor was in the kitchen, arranging cookies on a tray, her smile as serene as ever. Mom, stop, Caleb said, his voice shaking. The insurance, the landlord, the rumors, you're doing this on purpose. She turned, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. Caleb, I'm just looking out for you. This phase you're in, it's not you. I'm helping you find your way back. It's not a phase, he snapped. I love Marcus. Why can't you accept that? Her smile tightened, just for a moment. Love is a choice, Caleb. You're choosing wrong. But I'll help you fix it. He stormed out, his heart pounding. Marcus was waiting at their spot by the creek, a quiet place where the water's rush drowned out the world. They sat on a fallen log, the damp wood cold against Caleb's jeans. Marcus pulled him close, and for a moment, Caleb let himself breathe. We could leave. Marcus said, his voice soft but resolute. Start over somewhere new. Somewhere she can't touch us. Caleb wanted to say yes, to pack a bag and run. But Willow Creek was his home, flawed as it was. His job, his friends, however few remained, were here. Leaving felt like letting Eleanor win. I can't just run, he said. I need to stand up to her. Marcus nodded, his hand warm against Caleb's. Then we fight. Together. The next day, Caleb found an ally in an unexpected place. Rosie, the diner's owner, pulled him aside as he grabbed his usual booth. Her graying hair was tied back, her eyes sharp with concern. I've seen what your mother's doing, she said quietly. This town listens to her, but they listen to me too. You and Marcus, you're good kids. I'll help where I can. Caleb's throat tightened. Thank you, he managed. Rosie's support wasn't much. A kind word, a free coffee, a quiet nod to others in the diner. But it was a crack in Eleanor's armor. But Eleanor was relentless. By the end of the week, Caleb's boss at the auto shop called him into the office. I'm sorry, kid, he said, avoiding Caleb's eyes. We're cutting hours. You're off the schedule for now. Caleb knew Eleanor's hand was behind it. He drove to Marcus's apartment, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Marcus opened the door, took one look at Caleb's face, and pulled him into a hug. We'll figure this out, Marcus said. She's not going to break us. They spent the night talking, planning. Marcus had a cousin in Albany who might know of job openings. Caleb could apply for work outside Willow Creek, where Eleanor's influence didn't reach. But even as they strategized, Caleb felt the weight of his mother's smile, her quiet determination to fix him. She wasn't fighting with anger. She was fighting with love, or her twisted version of it, and that made her unstoppable. The next morning, Caleb woke to a text from an old friend, Sarah, who'd stopped talking to him after the rumors started. Meet me at the park. We need to talk. His heart raced. Sarah had been one of his closest friends before Eleanor's whispers turned her away. Maybe she'd seen through the lies. At the park, Sarah stood by the swings, her blonde hair tucked under a beanie. I heard what's been going on, she said, her voice hesitant. Your mom, she told me you were struggling, that you needed help. But I saw you with Marcus at the diner. You looked happy. I'm sorry I believed her. Caleb's eyes stung. She's trying to erase who I am, he said. I need people to see that. Sarah nodded. I'll talk to people. She's not the only one with a voice here. It was a small victory, but it gave Caleb hope. He and Marcus spent the next few days rallying support. Rosie spread word at the diner. Sarah talked to mutual friends, and slowly, a few people started to push back against Eleanor's narrative. But Caleb knew his mother wasn't done. Her smile was a promise of more to come, and he braced himself for the next blow. The first snow dusted Willow Creek, blanketing the town in a deceptive calm. Caleb felt the weight of it, each flake a reminder of the life he was fighting to hold on to. Eleanor's campaign had grown bolder, her smile a constant mask as she tightened her grip on his world. But Caleb was no longer the boy who'd cowered under her expectations. With Marcus by his side and a few allies stepping forward, he was ready to push back. The diner was quieter now, the holiday season pulling people away. Caleb and Marcus sat in their usual booth, mapping out their next steps. Marcus had found a lead on a job in Albany, a mechanic shop looking for someone with Caleb's skills. It was a 2-hour drive, but it was freedom, a chance to rebuild away from Eleanor's reach. We could make it work, Marcus said, his voice steady. You commute, or we move together. Whatever you want. Caleb's chest ached with gratitude. Marcus was his constant, the one thing Eleanor couldn't touch. Let's do it, he said. I'll call them tomorrow. But Eleanor had other plans. That afternoon, Caleb found a letter taped to his apartment door. The landlord's neat handwriting spelled out a notice. Lease terminated due to complaints. Vacate by month's end. Caleb's blood ran cold. He knew complaints was code for Eleanor's influence. She'd been cozying up to the landlord for weeks, dropping hints about Caleb's troubled behavior. He called Marcus, his voice shaking with rage. She's trying to make me homeless. She's not even hiding it anymore. Marcus was at his side in minutes, his calm presence a balm to Caleb's fury. She's escalating because she's scared, he said. You're not bending. That's why she's hitting harder. Caleb wanted to believe him, but the eviction notice felt like a death knell. He had savings, but not enough to start over without a job. And Eleanor knew it. She was counting on him to come crawling back, to beg for her help, to let her fix him. That night, they went to Rosie's, where the older woman slid a plate of pie between them. Heard about the eviction, she said, her voice low. That mother of yours is a piece of work. I've got a friend with a spare room in town. It's not much, but it's yours if you need it. Caleb's eyes burned. Why are you helping me? He asked. You barely know me. Rosie shrugged, her eyes soft. I've seen enough kids like you get hurt. You and Marcus deserve better. Her words carried Caleb through the next few days. He applied for the job in Albany, aced the phone interview, and felt a flicker of hope. But Eleanor was always one step ahead. When Caleb went to pick up his last paycheck from the auto shop, his boss handed him an envelope with half the amount he was owed. Eleanor stopped by. The man muttered, not meeting Caleb's eyes. Said you'd been unreliable. I had to dock you. Caleb's hands shook as he drove to his mother's house. He didn't knock, just walked in, finding her in the living room, knitting like nothing was wrong. Why? He demanded. Why are you doing this to me? Eleanor looked up, her smile serene. I'm saving you, Caleb. You're lost, but I'll bring you back. I'm not lost, he shouted, his voice echoing in the quiet house. I'm happy. Why can't you see that? Her smile didn't falter. You'll thank me one day, she said, her voice soft as poison. When you're fixed. Caleb left before he could say something he'd regret. He drove to Marcus's apartment, where they sat on the couch, the eviction notice crumpled in Caleb's hand. I can't keep fighting her like this, he admitted, his voice breaking. She's tearing my life apart. Marcus pulled him close, his arms a fortress. She's not stronger than us, he said. We'll find a way. The next day, Sarah called with news. She'd overheard Eleanor talking to Pastor John about a retreat for Caleb, a conversion therapy program in a neighboring town. She's planning to send you there, Sarah said, her voice urgent. She's been telling people it's for your own good. Caleb's stomach dropped. He'd seen the brochures, but this was different. This was a plan, a calculated move to break him. He and Marcus met at the creek, the water now edged with ice. We need to stop her, Caleb said, his voice firm despite the fear clawing at him. I'm not going to that place. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. We'll talk to Pastor John. He's not as bad as she thinks. Maybe we can get him on our side. They found the pastor at the church, a modest building with stained glass windows that glowed in the dusk. Pastor John was in his 60s, his face lined with years of listening to the town's troubles. He welcomed them into his office, his expression cautious but kind. Caleb didn't hold back. He told the pastor everything. His love for Marcus, Eleanor's campaign, the eviction, the conversion therapy plan. Pastor John listened, his hands folded, his eyes thoughtful. Your mother believes she's doing what's right, he said finally. But I've seen love like yours before. It's not a sin. It's not something to fix. Caleb's breath caught. It was the first time someone from the church had said those words to him. Pastor John promised to talk to Eleanor, to try to make her see reason. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a lifeline. As they left the church, Marcus took Caleb's hand, squeezing it tight. We're not alone, he said. She can't control everyone. Caleb nodded, but he knew Eleanor wouldn't stop. Her smile was a weapon, and she was just getting started. Winter tightened its grip on Willow Creek, the snow piling high and the air biting at Caleb's skin. He felt like he was walking a tightrope, with Eleanor on one side, pulling him toward a life he didn't want, and Marcus on the other, anchoring him to the truth. The job in Albany was a beacon of hope, but Eleanor's shadow loomed larger every day. Pastor John's talk with Eleanor hadn't gone as planned. Caleb learned this when he stopped by the church to thank him. The pastor's face was grim. She's convinced you're under some kind of influence, he said. She thinks Marcus is the problem. I tried to reason with her, but she's not listening. Caleb's heart sank. He'd hoped the pastor's words would soften her, but Eleanor was unyielding. That evening, she called him to the house, her voice syrupy sweet over the phone. We need to have a family meeting, Caleb. Just you and me. He went, against Marcus's advice. The house was warm, the smell of fresh bread filling the air, but Caleb felt like he was stepping into a lion's den. Eleanor sat at the dining table, a photo album open in front of her. Pictures of Caleb as a child stared back at him, smiling, carefree, before he'd learned to hide who he was. "Remember this?" Eleanor said, pointing to a photo of Caleb at his 10th birthday, surrounded by balloons. "You were so happy. I just want that boy back." Caleb's throat tightened. "I'm still me, Mom. I'm just being honest about who I am." Her smile was soft, almost pitying. "You're confused, sweetheart. But I found a place that can help. It's a retreat, just a few weeks. You'll come back better." He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not going to conversion therapy. You can't make me." Eleanor's smile didn't falter. "I'm your mother. I know what's best." He left, his heart pounding, and drove straight to Marcus's apartment. Marcus was waiting, his face etched with worry. "She's not going to stop," Caleb said, pacing. "She's got this whole town wrapped around her finger." Marcus grabbed his shoulders, steadying him. "Then we take it out of her hands. We move to Albany. Start fresh." Caleb wanted to agree, but the thought of leaving felt like surrender. He'd built a life here, however small, and Eleanor was trying to erase it. "I can't let her win," he said. "Not like this." The next day, Rosie called with a lead. A local lawyer, Maria Gonzalez, had a reputation for taking on tough cases. "She's helped kids in situations like yours," Rosie said. "Talk to her." Caleb and Marcus met Maria at her office, a small space cluttered with legal books and photos of her family. She was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Caleb told her everything: Eleanor's rumors, the eviction, the conversion therapy plan. Maria listened, taking notes, her expression grim. "Your mother's actions could constitute harassment," Maria said. "We can file for a restraining order, but it'll be tough to prove without more evidence. The eviction is tricky too. Landlords can claim complaints without much scrutiny. But we can fight it." Caleb felt a spark of hope. "What do we do?" "Document everything," Maria said. "Texts, voicemails, witnesses. If she's pressuring you into conversion therapy, that's coercion. We can build a case." For the next week, Caleb and Marcus turned into detectives. Sarah helped, gathering statements from friends who'd heard Eleanor's rumors. Rosie kept an ear out at the diner, noting who came in whispering about Caleb. Even Pastor John offered to testify if it came to that, though he warned that Eleanor was rallying her own allies, church members, neighbors, anyone who owed her a favor. Eleanor's next move came swiftly. Caleb's bank account, which he'd shared with her years ago, was suddenly frozen. Fraud concerns, the bank told him, but Caleb knew better. He confronted Eleanor at the church, where she was organizing a bake sale, her smile as radiant as ever. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, his voice low to avoid a scene. "You're taking everything from me." Her eyes softened, but her smile was steel. "I'm saving you, Caleb. You'll see." He walked away, his hands shaking. Marcus was waiting outside, his face a mix of anger and determination. "We're not giving up," he said. "Maria's got our back. We'll fight her in court if we have to." That night, Caleb moved into Rosie's friend's spare room, a cramped space with a single bed and a window overlooking the snow-covered street. Marcus stayed over, the two of them curled together under a thin blanket. "I love you," Caleb whispered, his voice raw. "No matter what she does, I'm not letting go of you." Marcus kissed his forehead. "We're stronger than her. Together." But Eleanor's reach was long. The next morning, Caleb got a call from the Albany shop. The job offer was rescinded. No explanation, just a curt apology. Caleb's heart sank. He didn't need to ask who was behind it. Eleanor's smile was everywhere, dismantling his life one piece at a time. The snow fell heavier now, blanketing Willow Creek in a silence that felt suffocating. Caleb's world was shrinking, his job gone, his apartment lost, his bank account frozen. Eleanor's smile was a specter, haunting every corner of his life. But Marcus's hand in his, warm and steady, kept him from breaking. They were fighting a war they hadn't chosen, and Caleb was determined to win. Maria, the lawyer, became their lifeline. She worked pro bono, her office a haven where Caleb and Marcus could strategize. "We've got enough for a restraining order," she said, flipping through their evidence. Texts from Eleanor urging Caleb to get help, witness statements from Sarah and Rosie, even a voicemail where Eleanor's voice, cloaked in concern, hinted at the conversion therapy retreat. "It's not airtight, but it's a start." Caleb nodded, his jaw tight. "What about the eviction?" "The bank account." Maria sighed. "The eviction's trickier. Landlords have too much leeway. The bank account, we can challenge it, but it'll take time. Your mother's careful. She's not breaking laws outright, just bending them." Caleb's stomach churned. Eleanor's carefulness was her strength. She didn't yell or threaten. She manipulated, her smile disarming anyone who questioned her. But Caleb wasn't alone anymore. Marcus, Sarah, Rosie, and now Maria, they were his army, small but fierce. The restraining order hearing was set for the following week. Caleb spent the days preparing, gathering more evidence, while Marcus scouted new job leads. They found a small mechanic shop in a neighboring town, less than an hour's drive, willing to take Caleb on. It wasn't much, but it was a lifeline. He started the next day, the hum of engines and the smell of oil a welcome distraction from Eleanor's shadow. But Eleanor wasn't idle. She'd rallied her church group, spinning a story of a son lost to sin and a mother desperate to save him. Caleb felt the town's eyes on him, some pitying, some judgmental. At the diner, a few regulars stopped coming to their booth, their absence a silent rebuke. Even Sarah, who'd been a rock, admitted her parents were pressuring her to stay out of it. One night, Caleb broke. He and Marcus were in the spare room, the snow outside muffling the world. "She's winning," Caleb said, his voice raw. "I'm losing everything. My home, my job, my friends. What if she's right? What if I'm—" "Don't," Marcus cut in, his voice fierce. He cupped Caleb's face, his eyes burning. "She's not right. You're not broken. You're the strongest person I know, and I love you. We're going to get through this." Caleb clung to him, tears falling. Marcus's words were a tether, pulling him back from the edge. They fell asleep tangled together, the world outside cold, but their small space warm with defiance. The hearing arrived, a gray morning that matched Caleb's mood. The courthouse was small, its wooden benches creaking under the weight of curious townsfolk. Eleanor sat across the room, her smile serene, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wore a pale blue dress, the picture of maternal virtue. Caleb's stomach twisted as their eyes met. Her smile said, "I'm doing this for you." Maria presented their case, her voice steady as she laid out Eleanor's actions, the rumors, the eviction, the bank account, the conversion therapy plan. Sarah and Rosie testified, their words painting a picture of a mother whose love was a weapon. Pastor John spoke last, his voice heavy. "Eleanor believes she's helping," he said, "but she's hurting her son. Love doesn't control, it sets free." Eleanor took the stand, her voice soft, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I just want my son back," she said. "He's confused, influenced by people who don't know him like I do. I'm trying to save him." Caleb's hands clenched. Her words were a performance, and the judge seemed to waver. But Maria was relentless, cross-examining Eleanor with precision, exposing the calculated nature of her actions. The judge granted a temporary restraining order, no contact, no interference, pending further review. It wasn't a victory, but it was a reprieve. Outside the courthouse, Marcus pulled Caleb into a hug. "We did it," he whispered. "She's on notice." But Caleb knew better. Eleanor's smile as she left the courthouse was too calm, too confident. She wasn't done. That night, Caleb got a call from his new boss at the mechanic shop. "I'm sorry," the man said, his voice uneasy. "We can't keep you on. Got a call from someone said you were trouble." Caleb's heart sank. He didn't need to ask who'd made the call. Marcus's face darkened as Caleb told him. "We need to leave," Marcus said. "Not because she's winning, but because we deserve better. A fresh start, Somewhere she can't touch us. Caleb nodded, the weight of it settling in. Leaving wasn't defeat, it was survival. They spent the night planning, Marcus's cousin in Albany offering a place to crash. But as they packed, Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that Eleanor had one last card to play. The snow in Willow Creek was relentless now, piling against windows and burying the town in white. Caleb felt buried too, his life unraveling despite the restraining order. Eleanor's influence lingered like a ghost, her smile a reminder that she could still reach him, even from a distance. But Marcus's hand in his, their plans to leave for Albany, gave Caleb a spark of hope. They were so close to freedom. They spent days packing, sorting through Caleb's belongings in the spare room. Rosie stopped by with coffee and encouragement, her gruff kindness a lifeline. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "Get out, live your life. She can't follow you forever." Caleb wanted to believe her, but Eleanor's shadow was long. The day before they planned to leave, Caleb got a call from Maria. "We have a problem," she said, her voice tense. "Your mother's filed a counterclaim. She's accusing you of harassment, saying you're unstable and need intervention. She's pushing for a psych evaluation." Caleb's blood ran cold. "She's trying to have me committed?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's a stretch," Maria said. "But she's got affidavits from church members, neighbors, even your old boss. She's building a case that you're a danger to yourself." Marcus, listening on speaker, slammed his fist on the table. "This is insane. She's weaponizing the system." Maria's voice was steady. "We'll fight it, but you need to be careful. She's desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things." That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He lay beside Marcus, staring at the ceiling, the weight of Eleanor's smile crushing him. She wasn't just trying to control him. She was trying to erase him, to rewrite his story as one of madness and failure. He turned to Marcus, his voice breaking. "What if she wins? What if they believe her?" Marcus pulled him close, his arms a fortress. "They won't. We've got Maria, Rosie, Sarah, Pastor John. We've got the truth. She can't take that from us." The next morning, they drove to Albany to meet Marcus's cousin, Jamal. He was a tall man with a warm laugh, his apartment small but welcoming. "You two are family," he said, clapping Caleb on the shoulder. "Stay as long as you need." Caleb felt a weight lift. Albany was a fresh start, a place where Eleanor's smile couldn't reach. He applied for new jobs, his hands steady as he filled out forms. Marcus found work at a community center, his passion for helping kids shining through. They were building something new, something theirs. But Eleanor's counterclaim loomed. Maria called with updates, her voice grim. The hearing was in 2 weeks, and Eleanor's affidavits were damning. Stories of Caleb's erratic behavior, his confusion, his dangerous influences. Caleb knew they were lies, but they were convincing lies, backed by people who trusted Eleanor's smile. Sarah came through again, rallying more friends to testify on Caleb's behalf. She'd started a small online campaign, sharing his story anonymously to counter Eleanor's narrative. "People are listening," she told Caleb over coffee at Rosie's. "Not everyone's on her side." Rosie nodded, sliding a plate of pancakes between them. "This town's not as small as she thinks. You've got people rooting for you." The support gave Caleb strength, but the fear lingered. The night before they left for Albany, he and Marcus sat by the creek, the water now frozen under a layer of snow. "I'm scared," Caleb admitted, his voice barely audible. "What if we move, and she still finds a way to ruin this?" Marcus took his hand, his eyes fierce. "She won't. We're not just running, we're building something she can't touch. A life. Together." Caleb nodded, tears stinging his eyes. Marcus was right. This wasn't about escaping Eleanor. It was about choosing themselves. They kissed, the cold air sharp against their skin, and Caleb felt a fire ignite inside him. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for love. The move to Albany was chaotic but hopeful. Jamal helped them settle in, his apartment a temporary home until they could afford their own. Caleb landed a job at a garage, the owner a gruff but kind man who didn't care about his past. Marcus thrived at the community center, his warmth drawing kids to him like moths to a flame. They were starting over, but Eleanor's hearing was a dark cloud on the horizon. Maria prepared them relentlessly, drilling Caleb on his testimony, gathering more evidence. Pastor John agreed to testify again, his words a quiet rebuke to Eleanor's crusade. Rosie sent a written statement, her words blunt but powerful. Even Jamal offered to speak, his loyalty to Marcus extending to Caleb. As the hearing approached, Caleb felt a strange calm. Eleanor's smile was still there, in his nightmares, in the affidavits she'd gathered. But he wasn't the scared boy who'd sat at her dining table, confessing his truth. He was stronger now, forged in the fire of her betrayal, tempered by Marcus's love. The night before the hearing, Marcus held him close. "No matter what happens tomorrow," he said, "we've already won. We're here. We're us." Caleb nodded, his heart full. Eleanor could try to dismantle his life, but she couldn't touch his soul. Not anymore. The Albany courthouse was a stark contrast to Willow Creek's small-town chamber, cold, imposing, with marble floors that echoed under Caleb's boots. He sat beside Marcus, their hands clasped under the table, as Maria shuffled papers, her face a mask of determination. Eleanor sat across the room, her smile serene, her eyes locked on Caleb like a predator sizing up prey. Today, she'd either break him or lose him for good. The hearing began with Eleanor's lawyer, a polished man with a voice like honey, painting Caleb as unstable, manipulated, a danger to himself. He read affidavits from Willow Creek's residents, Eleanor's allies, who claimed Caleb had changed, become erratic since meeting Marcus. Caleb's stomach churned, but Marcus's hand in his kept him grounded. Maria stood, her voice cutting through the lies. "Eleanor Thompson has waged a campaign of coercion against her son," she said, presenting texts, voicemails, and witness statements. Sarah testified about Eleanor's rumors, her voice steady despite her nerves. Rosie's statement, read aloud, called Eleanor's actions a betrayal of love. Pastor John spoke last, his words heavy with regret. "Eleanor's intentions may come from love, but her actions are control, not care. Caleb deserves to live his truth." Caleb took the stand, his heart pounding. He looked at Eleanor, her smile unwavering, and felt a surge of defiance. "I'm gay," he said, his voice clear. "I love Marcus. My mother can't accept that, so she's tried to take everything from me, my job, my home, my freedom. But she can't take who I am." The courtroom was silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Eleanor's smile faltered, just for a moment, and Caleb saw something new in her eyes, fear. Not of him, but of losing him. For the first time, he felt the balance shift. The judge deliberated for an hour, the longest hour of Caleb's life. When she returned, her voice was calm but firm. "The evidence shows a pattern of coercive behavior by Eleanor Thompson. The restraining order is upheld, and the counterclaim is dismissed. Mr. Thompson, you are free to live your life without interference." Caleb's breath caught. Marcus squeezed his hand, tears in his eyes. They'd won. Not just the hearing, but the right to exist, to love, to be themselves. Outside, Eleanor approached, her smile gone, her face raw with something like grief. "I just wanted to save you," she said, her voice breaking. Caleb looked at her, his mother, the woman who'd shaped his life, and tried to break it. "I don't need saving," he said. "I need you to let me go." She didn't respond, just turned and walked away, her shoulders slumped. Caleb watched her go, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over him. She was his mother, but she'd chosen control over love, and he'd chosen himself. In Albany, Caleb and Marcus built a new life. The garage job became steady, the owner impressed by Caleb's skill. Marcus's work at the community center grew, his passion inspiring everyone around him. They found a small apartment, its walls bare but full of promise. Jamal became family, his laughter filling their evenings. Sarah visited often, her friendship a bridge to the past they'd salvaged. Rosie sent care packages, cookies, coffee, notes that read, "Proud of you, kid." Pastor John wrote, too, his letters a quiet apology for the church's failures. Willow Creek faded, its grip loosening as Caleb and Marcus built something new. One night, they sat on their balcony, the Albany skyline glittering below. Marcus took Caleb's hand, his eyes soft. "We made it," he said. "Through all of it." Caleb nodded, his throat tight. "Because of you. Because of us." They kissed, the city lights a backdrop to their love. Eleanor's smile was a memory now, its power broken. Caleb had come out to his mother, and she'd tried to dismantle his life. But in the end, he'd rebuilt it, stronger, truer, with Marcus by his side. The snow fell softly outside, a reminder of the winter they'd survived. Caleb thought of Eleanor, alone in Willow Creek, her smile no longer a weapon. He hoped, one day, she'd understand. But for now, he was free. Free to love, to live, to be himself. And that was enough.